Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jai Radha
Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Astottara Shatashishimad Abhayacharana Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Astottara Shatashishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Kodi Vaishya Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari. Oh, glorious to the same of the devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glorious to the same of the devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glorious to the same of the devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Oh, glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam.
Narayanam Namaskrityam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam.
Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Udirayet.
Tato Jayam Udirayet.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God in Narayana, and to Naranarayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, Kapila's instructions on devotional service. And today's verse is
15?
Text 15, correct, yeah. Mata dvire pakalaya.
Mata dvire pakalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Kiritangada nupuram.
Kiritangada nupuram.
Matadvire pakalaya.
Matadvire pakalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Kiritangada nupuram.
Kiritangada nupuram.
Matadvire pakalaya.
Matadvire pakalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Kiritangada nupuram.
Kiritangada nupuram.
Matadvire pakalaya.
Matadvire pakalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Kiritangada nuparam.
Kiritangada nupuram. Matadvire pakalaya. Paritambanamalaya. Paratyaharabalaya. Kiritangada nupuram.
Matadvire pakalaya.
Matadvire pakalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paritambanamalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Paratyaharabalaya.
Kiritangada nuparam.
Kiritangada nupuram. Matadis. Matadvire pakalaya. Paritambanamalaya. Okay. Mata,
Mata,
intoxicated.
intoxicated.
Dvirepa, with bees.
With bees.
Kalaya,
Kalaya,
humming.
humming.
Paritam,
Paritam,
garlanded.
garlanded.
Vanamalaya,
Vanamalaya,
with a garland of forest flowers.
the garden of forest flowers.
Paradya,
Paradya,
priceless.
priceless.
Hara,
Hara,
pearl necklace.
pearl necklace.
Valaya,
Valaya,
bracelets.
bracelets.
Kirita,
Kirita,
a crown.
crown.
Angada,
Angada,
armlets.
armlets.
Nupuram,
Nupuram,
anklets.
anklets.
Translation. He also wears around his neck a garland of attractive sylvan flowers, and a swarm of bees, intoxicated by its delicious fragrance, hums about the garland. He is further superbly adorned with a pearl necklace, a crown, and pairs of armlets, bracelets, and anklets. Purport. From this description, it appears that the flower garland of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is fresh. Actually, in Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky, there is nothing but freshness. Even the flowers picked from the trees and plants remain fresh, for everything in the spiritual sky retains its originality and does not fade. The fragrance of the flowers picked from the trees and made into garlands does not fade, for both the trees and the flowers are spiritual. When the flower is taken from the tree, it remains the same. It does not lose its aroma. The bees are equally attracted to the flowers, whether they are on the garland or on the trees. The significance of spirituality is that everything is eternal and inexhaustible. Everything taken from everything remains everything. Or, as has been stated, in the spiritual world, 1 minus 1 equals 1, and 1 plus 1 equals 1. The bees hum around the fresh flowers, and their sweet sound is enjoyed by the Lord. The Lord's bangles, necklace, crown, and anklets are all bedecked with invaluable jewels. Since the jewels and pearls are spiritual, there is no material calculation of their value. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. Offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunattam Tamatam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. For my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. For my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brothers Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta and Srila Jiva Goswami. For my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Shivas, and other associates. For my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namostute. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. Offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Read the verse once more. He also wears around his neck a garland of attractive sylvan flowers, and a swarm of bees, intoxicated by its delicious fragrance, hums about the garland. He is further superbly adorned with a pearl necklace, a crown, and pairs of armlets, bracelets, and anklets. So, in these verses, Lord Kapila is explaining the transcendental form of the Lord that the yogi can meditate on in his heart. So it's described that the yogi is meant to imagine this form in his heart and then meditate upon it. So it's not ordinary imagination though. It's described that there's different forms of the Lord that one can worship. And according to time, place and circumstance, one can worship that particular form of the Lord. And the different possibilities given in the Srimad Bhagavatam are the deity made out of, can be made, the form of the Lord can be made out of metal, some kind of metal or stone, as we have the deities of Shishirada, Giridhari, made out of stone, and the deities of Shishi Gauranitai, made out of brass. So that's one form of the Lord, one way the Lord can be worshipped. And the Lord can also be, his form can also be made out of paint, so a painting of the Lord. And also, in some instances, even it's described can be drawn in the sand, because the yogi out in the forest may not have access to the kind of facilities to be able to have an actual form of the Lord made out of wood or stone or metal. So he can even draw the form of the Lord in the sand and worship that. And then the last example given, the last possibility given, is to make the form in one's mind, which is what Lord Kapila is explaining here. So the main thing is that the Lord's form is not made up. So the Lord's form is made according to the authoritative descriptions in the Shastra. And everything is given in a lot of detail. As we are reading here in these verses, the kind of details that are given, exactly how the Lord looks in the spiritual world. So there's these kinds of descriptions where it's described his kind of form and color and his decorations and so on. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, but also there's also scriptures Vedic scriptures or parts of the Vedic scripture which deal with specifically how to make the form, and very specific details are given, like proportions, for example, sort of mathematical proportions of where the chest goes and where the arms, and so it's very, very specific and detailed. And just to give one example out of many, the Lord has 3 lines like a conch shell on his neck. As you can see, my neck does not have that because it's not very auspicious. My neck has sort of a large Adam's apple, which is not very auspicious as far as I know. But in terms of the Vedic understanding, someone may have the symptoms of the Mahapurusha in their own body also, if they have certain kind of karma. And one of them is to have those 3 lines, concentric lines like those that are found on the conch shell. And it's very attractive if someone has that. And the Lord has that on his neck, along with many other features on his body. And you'll find, if you've been near enough to the deity form of the Lord, that those 3 lines are always there, because it's given in the Shastra that it has to be there. So the form of the Lord has to be bona fide. That's the main thing. And if the form of the Lord is bona fide, then the Lord is, because the Lord is absolute, then his form, as we know, is not different from himself. There's no difference between the form of the Lord and the Lord. There's no difference between the form between the holy name of the Lord and the Lord. And there's no difference between the prasadam, the food offered to the Lord, and the Lord himself. So they're all non-different from the Lord. And we can approach the Lord and associate with him through these different forms. Through chanting the Lord's holy name, we're directly associating with the Lord. Through worshipping and serving the form of the Lord, the Archa Vigraha, we are directly associating with the Lord. And by honoring the prasadam of the Lord, we are directly associating with the Lord and becoming purified. And also the Lord's service is not different from the Lord himself. So when we engage in the devotional service of the Lord, any kind of practical service for the Lord, then we are associated with the Supreme Lord through that service. And it's not any different, it's not any less than if we were directly in the presence of the Lord, because the Lord is not different from his service, etc. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita that there's evidence in the Shastra of a form being sagun, possessing attributes of the Lord, or nirgun, not possessing attributes of the Lord. So the idea that there can be like a non-bona fide form that someone's worshipping, in the Western world we speak of an idol. Srila Prabhupada explains in Bhagavad Gita that idea is there, is explained in the Vedic literature, that the form has to be bona fide. It can't just be like a tree or whatever, just anything, or any form of a human being. It has to be the form of the Lord. Because the Lord does have a form, ultimately, and we may have we tend to have impersonal conditioning in material existence, but which is a whole subject matter in itself. But ultimately, the point is the Lord does have a form, and we can, and if worship the Lord in that form, then the Lord will receive our service. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of a post box. Perhaps you have it here in New Zealand also. You have. I remember there was one when I was growing up. There was one just down the road from me, from where I lived. We had a supermarket just down the road, and there was a little red post box at the supermarket, and it was nowhere near the post office at all. But if you put your letter in that box, it would go to its destination. So Srila Prabhupada gave that example. Srila Prabhupada is so expert at finding appropriate analogies for things, for spiritual subject matters. So he gave that example that if you just you just have a box, you just make a box and put it there, even in the same supermarket. You just decide you're going to make a box and put it there. But if you put your letter in that box, it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to stay in the box. But if you put it in the bona fide post office box, although the concept is exactly the same, you've done the same thing, but if you put it in the bona fide box, then sure enough, whoever you post the letter to, they will receive it. So the same idea is there, that if the form of the Lord is bona fide, then because the Lord is absolute, He will receive service through that form. And it enables us in our material condition to approach the Lord, because we cannot perceive the transcendental form of the Lord with our materially contaminated senses. Srila Prabhupada sometimes gave the example that you can't see, even if we see a person leave their body, we don't see the soul leave the body. So we can't see spiritual subject matters. We can't see anything spiritual. What to speak of the form of the Lord? We can't even see the individual soul with our material senses. Therefore, the Lord, out of His mercy, comes to us in that form that we can perceive with our gross senses. So here Lord Kapilidev is describing how the yogi can also worship the Lord and serve the Lord and meditate on the form of the Lord. But in this case, not made out of gross matter, not in a form made out of gross matter, but in a form made out of subtle matter, we could say. Because as Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita, that this material energy has 8 elements, it doesn't have 5 elements, it has 8. So Krishna says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then mind, intelligence, and false ego. These 8 comprise my separated material energies. And then the next verse, aparayamitastvanyam prakritim vidyame param jivabhuta mahabaho yayadam taryate jagat. That besides these 8 inferior energies, there's another energy, this is a superior energy, and that energy comprises the living entities who are trying to exploit the resources of the inferior one, the inferior natures. They're trying to exploit these 8 elements for their sense gratification. So the point is that there are 3 subtle elements, material elements, and we may not think of it in these terms so much, but it is a form of matter. It's certainly not spiritual, but it is a form of matter. And an example can be given that I've heard, that sometimes you may have a song stuck in your head that you've unfortunately heard on the radio going to the mall or something, or that you used to listen to before you took to Krishna consciousness, and it's sort of just stuck in your head. Sometimes it just comes out of nowhere, and you can't get rid of it. And you actually hear in the song play in your head. if anyone has had that experience, but I have that a lot. So you're hearing the song. It's playing in your head, but it's not. Others can't hear it, and you're not hearing it with your gross senses, and it's not playing in the gross element of ether. It's not that kind of sound, but it's still there. It's still sound. So that sound is playing in the subtle matter, comprised of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So here the yogis, you could say, constructing a form of the Lord in that subtle matter, so he can, the yogi's not yet purified enough to be able to see the transcendental spiritual form of the Lord. His senses aren't purified. But he doesn't have facility maybe for making a form of the Lord out of gross matter. But through the mind, through the subtle matter, he can make a form of the Lord. Meditate on it and worship the Lord in that form. And because the Lord is absolute, that form that the yogi is making in his heart through his mind and seen in his mind, that form is the Lord, is not different from the Lord, and the Lord is receiving his service through that form. And therefore Lord Kapilideva is going into so much detail here of how that form looks and what is going on, and even it's described later on that he sometimes the Lord is lying down, sometimes he's getting up, and there's so much detail is given for the yogi to meditate on. And it's all really true. It really is how the Lord is looking and what the Lord would be doing. Okay, so this is the process of Krishna consciousness that Lord Kapilideva is given to his mother in the Satya Yuga. And the process of Krishna consciousness, as we know, appears different may appear different in different ages, according to the circumstance. And in the Satya Yuga, the process is meditation, that we know as the Yuga Dharma, is meditating. And people had the qualification to be able to do that. They had the facility, the kind of mental stability and so on, and lifespan, etc., to be able to do like that. And we see that, and it really does work. And the process of becoming stable in Krishna consciousness, fixed in Krishna consciousness, and then attaining bhava, and then attaining prema, pure love of God. As we said, the process of getting there may be different in different ages. And here we see, because I'm also reading this, I just happen to be reading in this, like I'm here now in my reading of the Bhagavatam, so I just finished this canto, and just I think it's in the next chapter, or maybe 2 chapters ahead, then it's described how Lord Kapilideva leaves and Mother Devahuti applies these instructions of Lord Kapilideva, and actually does attain bhava and pure love of God. And it's described that she becomes so Krishna conscious that she is and so absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord and so absorbed in love of God that she actually forgets her material bodies. Her material body. The Bhagavatam says, as one forgets the bodies that one accepts in a dream. So she becomes fully, just transcendentally absorbed in the Lord to the extent that she forgets her material body. So it really works, and she gets the results. So for us here in Kali Yuga, we are following the process given by Lord Chaitanya, coming down through the disciplic succession given by to us by Srila Prabhupada, and that is the Yuga Dharma of congregationally chanting the holy name of the Lord. So we can get the same result that Mother Devahuti got through chanting the holy name of the Lord. So we have to put a particular focus on our chanting of the holy name if we want to get the same results that Mother Devahuti got. And we can get the same result, and will get the same results that Mother Devahuti got if we apply the process nicely, because Krishna consciousness, it works. It's a perfect science, and one has the help of the Supreme Lord, and one can get the result of becoming Krishna conscious. So we also have deity worship, and other forms, other processes of devotional service, the ninefold process of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping the form of the Lord, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, making friends with the Lord, offering prayers and surrendering everything to the Lord. So that ninefold process is there, and we do engage in more or less all of those forms, or at least most of those forms, on a daily basis. However, in order for us to effectively practice the other processes, we have to really attentively chant the holy name. Because in this age of Kali, it is stated, Harinama, Harinama, Harinam eva kevalam, Kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatir anyata. That nothing else works except chanting the holy name of the Lord. So there's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way to attain spiritual perfection. So we really have to take our japa very, very seriously, and see it as what all our other services are expanding from, as the beginning of all of our services, to chant the holy name of the Lord. It is sometimes said that from japa, from one's 16 rounds, comes kirtan, and from kirtan, chanting with the devotees, and then from kirtan comes Naga Sankirtan, or Harinam Sankirtan as we call it, the chanting on the street, going to Harinam, and that then expands into book distribution and all these other services that we do to give people Krishna consciousness. So it's all coming originally from our japa, all expanding like the concentric circles in a pond when you throw a stone in, and all this, it sort of just expands from that. So the point is that to really be Krishna conscious, to really become successful in our Krishna consciousness, that is, and to attain this result, we have to really take this point very seriously, that it's really how attentively we chant our japa, and how much we put emphasis on that in our lives, adjust our lives to make that an emphasis. To that extent we will become Krishna conscious, and not otherwise. There's nothing else, as the Shastra says, is going to really work in this age. It really does depend on how seriously we take our chanting of the holy name. And if we do, then all our other services will be nourished. We'll be able to perform our other services in Krishna consciousness and not in another type of consciousness. And we will feel ourselves, we'll really feel ourselves year to year, from one year to the next. We'll really feel ourselves making spiritual progress in our Krishna consciousness. We'll really feel like we're getting somewhere in our Krishna consciousness, because that is the process in this age of Kali. And then we can, we could say, like Devahuti is emphasizing that his mother should meditate on the form of the Lord. So with that same seriousness, the Lord has appeared to us in the form of the holy name. And if we have that level of seriousness with chanting, then we are directly associated with the Lord, and the Lord's form and everything is present in his holy name. And in that way we can also attain the same result that Devahuti attained. Okay, it's 8:30, so we'll end there. And if anybody has any realizations or things they'd like to add or questions, you can do that now.
Very simple but very sublime.
Thank you, Prue.
Well, the process also, just take the name and everything will be revealed in due course of time.
Yes, that's what you were saying in your last class, I remember. I was sitting here, you were emphasizing that we should just be simple and chant attentively, and everything will come. Thank you. Simple, sublime process. Prabhupada said that, take a question. Prabhupada said that Krishna consciousness is simple for the simple and complicated for the complicated. And maybe you've heard that before. Yeah. Yes, Matari.
Do you have any tips on getting out of mechanical chanting?
Okay, do I have any tips on getting out of mechanical chanting? I can just repeat what I've heard, and I guess try it out. So the idea is to start with the gross situation. Gross matter is easier to kind of manage and deal with than subtle matter. So by starting with the gross situation, I've thought of this, that there's three things, perhaps we can say there's three things: time, place and circumstance. Generally the Vedic scriptures refer to these three things: Kala, Desha, Patra. So we can make sufficient time for it in our morning schedule. Make sure we can get at least the majority of our rounds done before going to work or doing our service for the day. And in place, make sure we have a place that is not that is conducive. Ideally, obviously, with devotees, in the presence of devotees, or a place where we're not going to get distracted by something. And then the circumstance, make circumstances that are conducive. Once a disciple of my spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, once asked him, because this devotee had some or other he had to chant his rounds just due to the nature of his work, the timing or the transport he had to take, but he had to chant his rounds. This was in Russia, in a packed bus or something other, and apparently they play music there as well. So in a packed bus with music blaring. So he asked my spiritual master, he said, "How do you chant your rounds attentively in such circumstances?" So my Guru Maharaj replied, "You don't. You change your job." Or you change your circumstances. So to to like adjust your life, even if you can, and if it's necessary, and if you can change your working life in a way that you have the time and the place and the circumstance to chant attentively. So that is the that is the gross aspect we can deal with. I think if we can do that, then we're sort of halfway, there. Yes,
You can do that, but then as soon as you have children, that whole thing goes out. When you said schedule some time in, you can schedule your kids.
Right, yeah.
So you'll get that realization also. That's quite a challenge also once you have kids.
Yeah.
You just got to get up earlier than your kids.
Yes, that's right. Because I don't have kids, so he's given experience. Yeah.
So there's so many challenges that come.
Yeah. I don't want to comment on the kids one because it's very easy to say. When you don't have kids, say you should. Like sometimes I think when I was growing up, like my mother would wake up at 5 o'clock every morning just to get things ready for my father, make his breakfast and all that, and my parents would go to bed at a certain time, and that was just the time they went to bed. Of course, it's that's only after a certain age, maybe after 6 or 7 or 10 when the child's that age. You can't do that before that. But they went to bed at a certain time, and if we went to bed or not, that was our problem really. They were going to bed because they had to be up early for work. But as I say, I know if I were to have kids, probably I wouldn't be able to do that myself. So I don't want to comment on that. But that is just something I did see when I was growing up. But yeah, I have to try our best for these 3 gross aspects, and I think if we can get the gross situation conducive, then we're halfway there. Without that, there's no use really trying to focus on the subtle aspect if the gross aspect you haven't tried your best to arrange that nicely. And then, so once you've got the gross aspect as best as you can, then there's the subtle aspect, because then we have a mind, and the mind is, we know how the mind is. So the only thing you can, like that Arjuna asks Krishna, how do you control the mind? And Krishna says through suitable practice and detachment. So what has been recommended is that simply you just keep bringing it back. If the mind goes from the holy name, then you just bring it back to the holy name. And then if it goes again, then you just bring it back to the holy name again. And if it goes the 3rd time, you just bring it back. You'll probably do that 100 times, but you just got to keep bringing it back. One may say that sounds sort of like a futile endeavor, because it's going to keep going. And you just have to keep bringing it back. But the thing is that if you do that, then you're on your way. If you do just keep on doing that, just keep on bringing it back and not giving into it, then you're on your way to Namabas chanting. And that's a very, very significant point. To be on your way to Namabas that's very significant, a very significant development in one's Krishna consciousness. Because from Namabas everything else comes. But without Namabas nothing else can come. One will stay just on the neophyte platform. So bringing the mind back means you're on your way to Namabas. Even if you have to keep doing it, it's just a matter of time. You more or less, sometimes I've even heard it said that can be considered like Namabas chanting Namabas in the clearing stage. But at least we can say safely that you're on your way to chanting to Namabas if you do that. And Krishna appreciates that. It's not a futile endeavor because Krishna appreciates that endeavor that you're making. You could say it's like a labor of love. The example sometimes given, you try to listen to your partner, your wife or your husband, and they appreciate that, even if you don't get it right all the time. They appreciate the effort that you're making. So Krishna's a person, and he appreciates that effort we're making. And when Krishna appreciates something you're doing, and that's something very significant. If I appreciate something my wife does, that may not be so significant for her. The kind of effects that it would have on her and the benefits she would get from me appreciating her doing something is not maybe that significant. But if Krishna appreciates something that we're doing, that is a huge effect on our lives, on our Krishna consciousness. So, like probably saying, it's simple, so just bring the mind back, get your gross circumstances right, and then in that conducive as possible atmosphere, when the mind wanders, just bring it back. Just keep bringing it back and see that as a labor of love. You're trying to please Krishna by doing that, and Krishna appreciates that, and that is something very significant. Yeah. Is that okay? And Devamrita Swami, I heard him say a while ago that when you attain the higher stages of chanting, I think you're saying the raga platform, then all those efforts you made throughout your life to chant attentively, all the efforts you made throughout your life to chant attentively, they all pay off. They all pay off when you get to the higher stages of chanting. It all pays off. It was all worth it. It wasn't done in vain. And you will be able to remember those efforts, and not just remember those efforts, but you will be able to realize practically how it's now paying off. Yeah, it all pays off. Any other questions or comments or realizations? Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.